Hi guys, Herbalist40 here, and thank you for joining me today. Alright, first of all, I'm really sorry about the delay. It's been a little over a week now since I've last uploaded a video. But as usual, as you guys know, if I take a certain amount of time off, it's usually that I'm going to come back with something really worth your while. And I'm happy to say today that really is the case. What I'm going to bring up to you today is going to be pertaining to many things that I've said before. Understand that this is the first part of what we're going to be looking into, and as the title revealed to you already, what we're looking into precisely is Capolavoro, the in-game movie. Now, first of all, we're going to start off with something that in the game itself you probably missed because it's not that easy to notice. It appears in a way that's quite unusual, and I'll bring it up on the screen right away. And it's basically this signpost for Capolavoro that we can see in the streets of GTA 5. Right, so here we have it, and it's basically this signpost for Capolavoro. Now, the thing about it is, and I'll put a video up on the screen in just a second while I'm talking, the thing about this signpost is you can only see the drawings over the top of the two dinosaur type creatures attacking each other. You can only see them once you get close enough. However, it's quite high up compared to where you are with your character on the ground, so it's mostly unnoticed when you drive past it, because by the time you reach the point that it reveals itself, you're so close to it that your camera is almost out of angle. As you see here, I have to kind of pull my camera down to make sure that I can see what's appeared on the screen. If I didn't, it would be out of view. Again, here in the clip I'm showing, I am proving that the way this appears and the way it disappears happens in a very particular fashion. I believe that this isn't like a mistake in the way that it appears. That's the way it was supposed to be shown. So check that out. I'm sure you can locate it from where it is on the screen. But for now, I would really like to go into just the basics of what we know of Capolavoro. So the basics being, it's a Vinewood film from 1963. It's from European Art House, directed by Emanuele Passarelli, and it is spoken in both French and Spanish with English subtitles. Now, from what we know, the film uses footage from Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto 4, notably certain scenes from Liberty City. The title, Capolavoro, of the movie actually stands for masterpiece in Italian, and the tagline to this movie is the unforgettable classic that still nobody understands. So what you're looking at on the screen now is an in-game website called classicvinewood.com. I encourage you to go and check it out if you're looking into any of the movies of the game, because as I'll show you on the screen now, we basically have comments under said films. Now I believe on certain films you might even find comments from Michael, but on this one, the comment in the top right hand corner here, you can see what's his name, Thimble Dick, says what is with the horse. Now I'm not going to pay attention to the other two because it's not too relevant to me, but he says what is with the horse. Now this is our first clue into what we need to look into in this movie and possibly understand from this movie, because it is stating that still nobody understands, which would state that it's not out of reach. It's something that we can still accomplish, depending on how we go about it. Now, what I've decided to do next is play you 2 minutes of the movie before I join you again, but bear in mind I've slowed it down and changed the filter. It's only a couple of minutes. I'll join you in a second.
No estaba dormido. Estaba durmiendo, pero despierto.
Ta femme doit être remarquable. Ces rêves que tu as à la fois éveillé et endormi. Mais tu n'es qu'un simple voleur.
Okay, so that's basically the most we're going to watch of Capolavoro for today's video. Now, I said I slowed it down and I changed the shading of the screen. Now, I slowed it down because I slowed it down enormously. A lot of the images that you just saw, you wouldn't have noticed had you watched it in the game itself, because they're so fast. It's like subliminal messages hidden within the film itself. So by slowing it down, we were able to get a good look at the clock, a good look at certain images that just flash onto the screen and then flash off again immediately. And notably, that's why I brought up the comment, is what's with the horse is you can see the clock is going forward in time and not backwards, yet the horse seems to die between the hours of 6 and 7 and then revive again after 20 to 11. Now, the clock goes forward continuously and you can barely see it during the normal speed of the movie, and that's why I chose to slow it down. Now, why did I choose to change the shading on the movie? Is because basically, thanks to Music Video, who explained to me, like, basically Music Video uploaded Capolavoro on his channel quite a while ago, and I went to check it out and I noticed it got removed for copyright. And Rockstar sent him a message explaining that they had employed a third party to make Capolavoro for them, therefore they don't hold all the rights for the movie, therefore that's why the video was taken down for copyright off of Music Video's channel. Therefore that's why I've chosen to change the shading on it and split it into sections and also reduce the speed on it so that hopefully I won't be affected by the copyright issues, because I am using it for documentation only. Really quick, just 1 minute while we're on the subject. Some of you, I know for a fact, got involved and saw Music Video's latest, well, not latest now, but one of his most recent videos, and he basically, it was his video about the triggers, and some of you got the impression that he was talking about me, Wispy, Bry, for example, and I'm not gonna lie, I had that initial feeling as well. Now, me and Danny had a long conversation this afternoon, and I just wanted to put it out there that there is no beef between the two of us as far as I'm concerned. He was telling the truth when he couldn't remember who he was talking about, therefore it wouldn't be me, Bri, or Wispy, because he knows us perfectly well. I know who he was talking about. Who it is isn't important. Really, believe me, it isn't. I just wanted all of the people who kind of backed me up and backed Wispy up and kind of went against Danny. I want you all to know that the problem has been resolved. Danny understands how it was misinterpreted. I think I explained my point on that fairly well, and Danny explained his point fairly well on the fact that he wasn't talking about us. So that's all I wanted to say on that matter. Shouts out to Danny, though, for sharing with me that the movie Capolavoro was indeed made by some separate company to Rockstar, obviously under Rockstar's influence as well. And yeah, that just basically goes to show how selective Rockstar can be to get the work they want done, to get it done the right way, the way they want it to be done. So they're very selective about who they employ and what they employ them for. But more to the point, if you rewind a few minutes before I started babbling, you can hear this woman say in French, "Ta femme doit être remarquable," which is French for "your wife must be remarkable." However, here in the written translation, and this is what I call an inconsistency, not a mistake, it says "your life must be remarkable." Now, that's not what she says in French. I will say "your life must be remarkable" in French is "ta vie doit être remarquable," whereas she said "ta femme doit être remarquable," which is wife. There's no way the voice actor could have got those two confused in the French language, and I don't see how a translator would get that mistaken in the written translation into English. So I believe this was one of the ways to kind of sway us from seeing certain truths in this movie. Now, this is not the first inconsistency, or it's definitely not the last, let's say that, but I'm just going to play one really short clip of the next few seconds that follow this scene in the movie Capolavoro, and this is the last bit we're going to look at today, and it's going to be the major part of this video that we're going to be really want to focus on as a team from now on.
La guerra me hizo una puta y a ti una ladrona. ¿O era al revés?
Freud a beaucoup d'explications à donner.
¿Quién ha dicho eso?
Right, so in this part, you can rewind it if you need to because it was fairly short. She basically says Freud has a lot of explanations to give or a lot to answer for. Now that's where I'm going to bring up the second inconsistency in translation. She says in French, which is Freud a beaucoup d'explications à donner, because French people pronounce his name the way it's supposed to be. In English it's translated to Freud, but it's actually written Freud, as they say in French, Freud. So a lot of people wouldn't have noticed, although Freud's a common name and a lot of people recognise it, written as such and pronounced in French, you wouldn't necessarily pay attention to the fact that Capolavoro, the movie, is referencing this guy directly. Now, as you can see on the screen, his full name, and this is how it's pronounced, is Sigmund Slomo Freud. That's how we pronounce it in English. That's how he would have pronounced it himself when he spoke English. So Sigmund Slomo Freud. He is the founder of psychoanalysis. He is the father of the theory ID, ego, and superego. He studied and theorized on dreams, and he also approved and campaigned for a very long time of medical cocaine. He engaged in self-treatment when it came to cocaine. He used to use it for headaches, for blocked noses, you name it, he used it. And he basically, back in his time, thought that he discovered the first general anesthetic. That was, of course, until he realized the catastrophic effects of cocaine, which is addiction, terrible addiction. Excessive use can lead then to organ failure and all sorts of other nasty shit that you don't want to really know about. But the point being here, the first point, and not the most important, is Prop 208. So as we can see right about now on the screen, we have Prop 208, and it's basically an in-game campaign in Grand Theft Auto 5 to legalise medical cocaine. Exactly what I was talking about when it came to Freud. Now, as far as I know, this campaign is tied to Sue Murray, who is one of the campaigners for governor in Grand Theft Auto 5, the other one being Jock Cranley. I believe Sue Murray ties to this more than Jock. Anyway, all babbling aside, now we're going to be moving on to the major theory behind this, and to do that I'm going to explain to you one of Freud's theories as clearly, as simply as I can, and that's basically how Freud separated the mind into three parts, with each part having its own function: the id, the ego, and the superego. And as I'm going to try to explain, this particular Freudian theory fits quite nicely into our characters and storyline and can possibly show us some insight as to what to do and when. Right, so this diagram of an iceberg should help explain this understanding as we travel upwards from the unconscious to the preconscious and finally to the conscious level of the mind. Each of the three parts of the mind develop at a certain age. The first to form is the id. It starts from birth and bombards the infant's mind with instinctual drives. All the id wants is to have its desires fulfilled. It exists only for pleasure and wants immediate gratification. It does not perceive what is realistic and is incapable of being logical or understanding what is moral. The id has no awareness and is simply a collection of urges. It influences the mind by inserting pressure on it and gives a sensation of release when the urge is fulfilled. According to Freud, the drive expressed themselves as sexuality and aggression.
Say something! Oh, I wish you were dead, I really do.
Oh, I love you!
This is the ovaries says something like, you forget thousands of things every day.
Fucking shit! Cut! 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 Who the fuck
As you
are you
can see,
speaking
the
to?
id is located completely in the unconscious state of the mind. This will last up until the age of 2 to 3, where the child is influenced solely on its biological drives. After this, the second part that comes into play is the ego, and the ego is created off of what was initially just the id. So the brain was composed of the id, then developed the ego. The ego is created from the experiences the child has during the first 2 to 3 years of its life. The baby learns that its urges cannot always be fulfilled, and the ego is created in order to dictate which of the id's urges will be expressed. Unlike the id, which is a collection of instinctual drives, the ego can think about things. It can observe reality and decide what is rational and what is realistic. The ego is essentially what allows the mind to act. In other words, it's like our will. It exists in all states of the mind: unconscious, preconscious, and conscious. At around the age of 5, a portion of the ego is modified and becomes the superego, which is basically our conscience and allows us to differentiate between right and wrong. It is essentially a collection of moral lessons learned from our parents, society, and organized religion. The superego uses guilt to punish the ego if it misbehaves, and it rewards it with pride if it complies with its wishes. Like the id, it thinks nothing about what is realistic and wants moral perfection. The id and superego are always battling to control behavior, so the ego is basically there to decide which one of the two gets to take action or express itself. So too much id will cause someone to act in a destructive or inappropriate way. If the superego becomes too dominant, the person could become a rigid perfectionist. The superego has moral requirements so severe that the person would never live up to them and suffer from constant guilt. To conclude, Freud considered a healthy person to have a strong ego in order to correctly balance the id and the superego. This is why, to me, Michael is the character in Contact with a Shrink, and this gives us the opportunity to manipulate his response towards his feelings in the format of AB, AB, or option 1, option 2 when we're with Dr. Freidlander, for example. So basically, guys, that was the clearest, simplest, easiest explanation I could give you of what Freud's theory of the human psyche was. The reason I've chosen to break the movie into separate parts as well is because different Freudian theories are going to attribute to different understandings that we have in our game and our mystery. Notably, his theories on dreams relates to the movie Capolavoro quite well, seeing as the main protagonist refers to himself as dreaming not only when he's asleep but also when he's awake, and in the future video we're going to come to understand that that was basically a Freudian understanding and a Freudian theory. In the future I'm going to be referencing World Genocide 420 quite a bit because he's a dude who understood this before me mentioning it, and I understood it before he mentioned it to me, but I just wanted to give him a shout out because a lot of what he said has influenced me in building up this understanding. But for today though, the shout out is going to go to my boy Dominator. And first of all, if you're watching, man, I'll send the link to this video to you anyway. I want you to know you sent me a ton of stuff and I haven't replied to all of it because I'm really busy. Like, it's taken me a week to bring out this video, but same goes for anyone else. Everything you send me, nothing goes unnoticed. Let me tell you, if it takes me 6 days to reply to a comment, then it takes me 6 days. I will reply, I will read, and I will converse with each and every one of you, no problem. But hands down here, I wrote A+ True Hunter on your psych report, Dominator, because as it says at the bottom, Dr. Freidlander quotes Dr. Freud, Professor Jung, I beg you, help me. Now, I'm going to upload a video very soon which is basically going to consist of every possibility I could scrap in the psych results, like literally everyone, and I'm just going to upload it in a video so that you can all scale through it and see what understandings you can take from it, because this is not the only time that Dr. Freidlander refers to Professor Jung, as you can see on the bottom line there, just above the A+ True Hunter. The last line is the one we're focusing on. Professor Jung is also a real person, and he basically worked side by side with Freud for pretty much Freud. Some call him a fraud, but he worked side by side with Freud for 16 years. He was a pioneer in psychiatry also, and they ended up separating their alliance over a woman, and we're going to get into that also in the future, but I just wanted to point out that in this psych report and in another one that I was unable to locate for this video, Dr. Freidlander requires or says that basically Jung would have a field day with this one or something along those lines. So it's twice now, not only in the film but also in these psych reports, that Freud has been mentioned. And as I said earlier, it was a mistranslation in those subtitles. It says, literally translated, it says Freud has a lot of answers to give or a lot of explanations to give, and I take that as in there's understanding in his work. I believe he's exactly the type of guy Rockstar would influence on, in the sense that he's about as controversial as Rockstar North is. So many people love him and so many people hate him for split reasons. Anyway guys, I hope you understand the general approach that I was coming with here. These are true facts to the game, nothing was made up, everything I told you was facts of Freud's theories. I really hope that I put it forward in an understanding way, just to kind of top off the video, make it a complete kind of deal. How would I say it? Basically, I want you to understand that scenes you want to look at, for example, are the scenes where Franklin chooses to kill Trevor or lets Michael do it. Then you'll really understand what I mean about the id, the ego, and the superego. Now, I didn't put the scene in this video because I've already put it in 2-3 videos, and I don't like really repeating myself on the same stuff over and over again. But check that scene out of like either Franklin killing Trevor at the end or Franklin allowing Michael to do so, and you can replay your missions once you've completed them the first time round, so hopefully you guys can check that out for yourselves. But you'll really see that the attitude correlates quite well to everything I've tried to explain to you in today's video. Now it goes further than that, and it all boils down to a general understanding that I have about Lost. I have a lot about Kubrick movies and a lot about the Back to the Future, and all these things basically revolve around choices, good and bad, and the results of said choices when it goes right and when it all goes wrong. And by default that basically means karma. And the reason I brought you to Freud and his explanations, the reason I extracted this from the game and brought it to you, was to understand that his knowledge of the human psyche corresponds quite beautifully to what karma truly is. Which, as I said before, isn't necessarily doing a playthrough without killing any NPCs or anything along those lines. It's more or less a sense of making the right choice for the right reasons, or making a wrong choice for the right reasons, depending on the situation that you're in. And as I've proved before, a lot of the things that our main characters say, such as Franklin, Michael, Trevor, and also Lamar, Omega, and people like that, people actually part of the storyline in itself, have some very interesting insights to give us. And I haven't stopped doing this from the beginning. Every time I give you playthroughs or cutscenes of the game, I always highlight the interesting wordplay that Rockstar gives us. And I believe that everything I've been saying from the beginning is now tying into itself quite beautifully. And obviously we haven't come to any concrete physical steps yet, but let me tell you, I feel we are really getting closer to the truth. And for those of you who follow me, you know I don't say this often. You know, I try not to bullshit you guys. I've tried to make you understand that I'm not here for no YouTube career. I truly am here to try and help you guys out. Once again, this takes a huge amount of time. Don't forget that. I'm not getting paid for any of this. This is not my day job, believe me. I go and mix concrete and fucking lay plasterboard and put down tiles and fucking install stairs, staircases and all the rest of it. That's what I do for a fucking day job. I don't make YouTube videos for that. The reason I'm here making YouTube videos is because I have been involved in this mystery since 2013, and I feel that I'm someone who's put in a lot more hours into the mystery than the average person, and therefore I feel I have some use giving that to you guys rather than keeping it all to myself. Finally, before I let you guys go, I wanted to say one thing, and that is also the possibility of us not necessarily using, for example, Michael the ego to direct Franklin and Trevor into the right choices to allow us to progress, but it could also be a case of using all three of our characters to lead Jimmy, Jizzle, to a healthy state of mind in Freud's eyes. And just before I go, I'm going to briefly explain what I mean by that to you guys. So to explain it, I have to go back to 2013, and one of the first posts I ever really got buzzing off on Reddit, and it mentioned Freud, and the dude who brought it up didn't know that Freud was mentioned in Capolavoro, and he didn't know that Freud was mentioned in the psych reports. I remember the post, I've read it again since, and I know he wasn't aware of what I brought to you today, yet he still saw the id in Trevor, the ego in Michael, and the superego in Franklin. He thought of that before anyone even looked into Capolavoro, as far as the timeline goes. As far as I can tell, like, no one was even interested in the in-game movies back then. There was still the mural, there was still the UFOs, people were buzzing off other things, yet I always remember this dude correlated our protagonist to Freud's theory of the human psyche. Now, why do I tie Jizzle into this is because that dude did, and he explained in his post that Jimmy was the only character throughout the entire storyline to make a life change, and that would be after the mission Parenting 101. He decides to ride a bicycle and look for a job. Now, that's more that can be said for any one of our characters in the storyline, who all finish off exactly pretty much the same way they started, maybe with a bit more cash, but no lessons learned and no life changes made. And Jimmy is also the only person that all three characters can hang out with. For example, Michael can't even hang out with his own daughter Tracy. Therefore, it is a strong possibility that we need to exploit this Freudian theory to help out Jimmy. But anyway, this is all a very light insight to what Freud has to offer us. I have a feeling that because of the fact that Rockstar references this guy directly, it's going to be difficult for a lot of the usual people who discredit me to do so this time round, because let's face it, Rockstar don't usually directly call out someone who exists in real life. The only people I know Rockstar to do this for is, number one, Laszlo. For those of you who don't know, Laszlo is a real life TV show presenter / celebrity, blah blah blah. So they use his real name. He's one of the only people. And the other person I've heard referenced in the game is Darwin, and that's very interesting on the theory of evolution and all the relevancy we have to monkeys in this game and how they perceive it in, for example, the movie Meltdown, which is something we're going to get to in the future as well, but we're going to save that for after Capolavoro. Anyway, the point being here, guys, is that with this aspect we can perhaps understand what kind of a karma theory we need to do, a lot more of a concrete view on what type of karma theory to do, should I say. Therefore, I'm going to choose to come back to this in every section of the movie and try and explain to you guys what everything means as best as I can and link it to the game as best as I can. But that's it for today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed, and as usual, until next time, take it easy and see ya.